Podcast. Take 2, eh?
Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
How you doing?
Good, mate, good.
Oh, that's awesome. Today we've got a very lucky guest here. We've got Cam Candy from Sydney Zoo on. How you doing, Cam?
I'm good, fellas. How are you?
Good, mate. We
Very
can hear you
good,
this time.
very good.
I'm glad. You don't sound like chipmunks this time.
That'd have been an interesting podcast.
It was.
Oh, we always have an issue with that program, don't we, mate?
Yeah, it seems to be. This one never seems to let us down for some reason, so which is good.
Oh, mate,
Awesome.
what's been happening? Welcome back.
Yeah.
It's exciting to have you back on. You got a few topics you want to chat about tonight, don't you?
Yeah, I guess it's been about a year or so, hasn't it?
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
a bit over. Yeah.
I think you were one of the first guests on, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was in the top 20 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Privilege and an honour.
I wouldn't go that
Well.
far. It's just me, Luke.
No, you're right, though. I do have things to talk about, and it just kind of sorry for the late notice, the late heads up, but I just kind of thought, oh, it's Frog ID week, and be the perfect time to.
Frogs in the background going.
Yeah, I can
Frog
hear it.
ID week.
What is that? Let me put my validator headphones on, and it's got to be. I'm kidding. What is it? Actually, you guys don't. You already know what it is.
We know.
We were out the other night actually on survey, and we're in a, I guess you could call it an integrate zone or an overlap zone between nudie and Phylacroa. Yeah, and they're effectively impossible to ID without the call. And so we did have to do a quick brush up on the calls and go, yep. No, there is once you hear them calling side by side, really easy.
Yeah.
But if you heard them separately, they might throw you off. But yeah, the nudies have got, Phylacroa, your Phylacroa is just a squeaker, and your nudie's got like a grunt or an oink in there. It's like an as well as the squeak.
That you can hear in the background here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't you give the listeners a bit of rundown on the Frog ID app? We've spoken a couple of times, but
I mean, I'm hoping all the listeners have Frog ID. That's for starters.
yeah.
If you don't have it, you should definitely get it. Very easy to get off any app store. Just search Frog ID, and it'll come up. Basically started by the Australian Museum, the Herpetology department. My involvement has been for about, since I moved back here from the NT, so it's been about 2 years or so. Someone that I know that was on the team said, you kind of know your frogs, so you should email us and see if we need anyone. At the time they did, so I was lucky. And I'm one of the validators, so let's just assume that a lot of you have Frog ID. Do you guys have it? You better.
Yeah, of course.
Just lie and say that you do for this segment. So you'll be more or less familiar with you record the frog calling. Yep, that's it. Good proof of life.
I got a new badge the other day.
Oh, good. Yep, the badges is a cool little dopamine hit for people to get them hooked. Borrowing techniques from poker machines. No, I'm kidding. So you record the frog, and a couple of things come up on your screen. You can add some habitat, the area, and then you can pick if you think you know the species or you want to take a guess or whatever. You can add a species or maybe you have a chorus and you have multiple species. You can add them all in. But the insider tip if you don't have time for that, just skip all those bits, go next. All we need is the recording. So that goes off into a database, and then the validators, people like me and half a dozen other people on the team, we log in remotely, so you can do it all from home. That was partly how I got into it, was the whole COVID thing, was although not that many people were recording frogs, still people were. You know, you're allowed to get out into your own local area and all that, so the calls were still coming in. We could just do it from home. So you log in and you'll type in some filters, like it might be New South Wales or whatever, Queensland. I only do New South Wales. And you just get pages and pages and pages of audio files. And you just set aside some time, you click on it, put your headphones on, and you start listening. And you try and figure out what it is. And that's so we're the ones that send you the email that says, thank you for your recording. It's really helpful for frog conservation, blah, blah, blah. We collect that data, and lots of cool stuff has come out of it. A couple of new species have been described or redescribed.
Yep.
It's been really helpful for some of those things. I guess one of the perhaps one of the best known recent ones would be the dentata group, the screaming tree frog. So the one that we get around here that used to be Latoria dentata is now Latoria quiritatus. And dentata's up on the mid-north coast, and then ballatus is north of that. So one species became three based on calls and a bit of geography as well. So that's Frog ID. I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with it, but Frog ID Week is basically an initiative that the museum's come up with to try and boost numbers, try and attract people to the app. So Jodie's been on TV shows. I'll have to send you the link. There was a really good bit of footage of her on one of the morning shows. I think it was Sunrise or something like that, and she's holding the green tree frog and it jumps
on her face.
Square on her face.
I saw that. I had a laugh at that one. It was good.
She's the ultimate frog lady.
Yeah, no, I did see that little snippet. That was good.
So if I hadn't made it abundantly clear, it is currently Frog ID Week. It started on Sunday. It runs till Sunday, midnight. So one of the reasons I wanted to come on here was because it is currently Frog ID Week. Let's get all the herpers out there and record some frogs. Herpers, of course, are some of the most skilled observers out there. There's probably lots of you are in New South Wales, but I'm sure there's many listeners from around the country that can contribute. New South Wales gets the most most volume of calls. It'd be good to boost some numbers elsewhere in SA, Victoria, WA, everywhere. Queensland and New South Wales. And poor old Victoria doesn't have the range that we have, so they can't contribute quite as much. But there's some cool stuff down there. So get out there this weekend if you got the time, if you're going to be herping anyway.
Yeah, just pull the phone out of the pocket and might have to go frogging this weekend, Luke.
I will be, mate, but I won't be anywhere near Sydney. So
no, you'll be out, buddy.
I'm going looking for the crucifix frogs.
That's okay. You can. That's the main point is herpers are going to be out, doing stuff. Like if you're going to be up that northwest, central west, if you can get stuff like crucifix calling and platycephala and rough frog and green stripe frog, all those cool cycloranas and notodon, like that's really good data to have those guys calling, because that stuff doesn't come through that much. It doesn't come through in large numbers, in large quantities. You obviously have to be there at the right time. So there's a few like repeat customers, if you like, that live in some of these more remote areas, regional areas that contribute to Frog ID, and it's extremely valuable data. But, you know, otherwise, there's not huge populations out there compared to on the coast here. And that's why places like Sydney and New South Wales and Queensland more broadly have the largest volume of data coming through with frog calls, because half the time they're in our backyard.
Exactly.
It's still very valuable data, but you've just illustrated the point perfectly, Luke, by saying you won't be in Sydney, you'll be out herping. So, just take some recordings. If you and if anyone has any questions about it, feel free to send me a private message or whatever you like, and I can, if I can't answer it myself, I can ask the head honcho and get an answer for you, because sometimes there are bugs that need to be fixed on the program, and a lady called Nadia is brilliant at fixing that kind of technical IT stuff. So it is useful if you think something's not working on it properly. Definitely let us know. Don't feel like it's broken and you can't use it. Let us know, and might be some useful information that can help fix a bug.
With that being said, like, you know, is it just recordings that you use, or do you use images and things like that as well for the app?
You can send images in, but they don't contribute to the project. The project is solely audio recordings. We encourage photos because sometimes that can be just a useful piece of information in the overall context when you've sent some recordings in, and perhaps you've got a photo of a frog that is not in your recording. So sometimes it can be quite useful, especially for people that perhaps don't know what they're looking at. We can say your recording is of Limnodynastes salmini, but the photo you've sent in is an eastern water-holding frog. So the call is not from the frog that you've taken the picture of, and vice versa. So it's very useful for that. We obviously encourage the general public not to handle frogs, to take photos to send in for us, because no, we don't use it for the project. It's the calls that are the most valuable pieces of data, because as you can probably understand with some of the newly described species, it's calls that can identify the new species. So that dentata complex is a good example. Calls often help ID something alongside geography and DNA. Yeah,
that makes sense. Oh, that's exciting though. And it feels like only yesterday that Frog ID Week was around last year.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah. Trying to think what I was doing last year. I think I might have gone to Narrabri myself actually. I think I did actually in November.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. It is a good time to go. It's a bit of a bummer at the moment for all these people out west and central and north, and so much flooding happening. It's been real tricky to get out there. Not that I've had the time, but it's I'm looking forward to it. But a bit tricky at the moment.
There's a few road closures and things that we've got to probably steer clear of. But it seems pretty nasty. In particular, I think Forbes today came up on the news to say that it was underwater.
Yeah, I heard the same thing, which is a big shame for all the people out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Somewhere that I was looking to head, but I'm not going to, don't want to clog the system up by being a herper out there, just getting in the way. So leave them to it for now, and hopefully conditions clear up a bit. I guess the good thing, herping wise, is this is going to set us up for probably a couple of years, these kinds of conditions.
Yeah.
It may even be better in the next couple of years. So, but it does seem from all reports that things are booming already.
Well, you'd imagine your amphibians would be loving a lot of the rain.
Amphibians, definitely. But yeah, snake populations, hopefully, and over the next couple of years.
So have you found with the app the effect that with the frog die-off? Like, have you noticed much with that, with the app, or?
Yeah, so the work I do, to backtrack a bit, the work I do with Frog ID is for the Australian Museum, for the Herpetology Department. Frog ID is a project. I'm just a casual that does a few hours a week if I can. I'm I'm the smallest part of that machine. But that has been running before there was the frog mortality event that's been happening over the last 2 years. So following that, they got a grant and some funding to investigate the frog mortality event that was occurring and still potentially occurring right now, primarily on the East Coast. So it does tie into Frog ID a little bit. If people had a dead frog or something, and they've sent a recording in, sometimes they'd send a photo in. And so, yeah, you can do it that way and we'd still use that information. But you don't have to do it that way. You can just contact the museum however you want to. So when that sort of funding came through for that project, I got to do more work by going out in the field and helping in the field. So that's been really cool for me to be able to do field work and assist with that, with a bit of, because again, it's helpful with herpers because we're out there and we see stuff. So we can chase up leads. And there was a situation where we went to look somewhere that we'd had a tip off about from a member of the public that said there's this pond when the suggestion was that there may have been a die-off event occurring there, and I was not far away, so I agreed to come and help and see what was happening. We found the pond was pristine, in beautiful condition, so we weren't sure what had happened there. There'd been some sort of misunderstanding, perhaps. But because I knew the area, I said, "Oh, why don't we go check this other pond out that I know of that has been in really good nick the last time I went there, but it was a while ago." And we ended up going there, and it was a die-off event, and we were able to collect lots of samples from there, and chytrid was found in that area on those individual frogs. And that's just been repeated over and over throughout the East Coast. So another thing that people can do if they are so inclined, if you do get a dead frog, probably not so much when you're out in the bush. I'm not sure how legal that is, but if it's in your backyard or your place of work or, something like that out on the street, and you find a dead frog, you can actually bag it up and chuck it in the freezer and get the museum to collect it.
Yeah.
Just contact them and let them know, because you can still test, still swab the frog, and figure out what's going on, because there is some idea floating around that I think everyone is aware now that chytrid is involved, but it's likely not the only thing that's involved. But how do you figure that out? You got to collect the data.
Exactly.
I suppose at the end of the day, with more specimens and stuff like that coming through, then that makes it a little bit more likely that you're going to, up your chances of finding whatever is causing all of this sort of gear.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not an ecologist or a scientist, which is why I've been really grateful to be involved as a research assistant in the field. But any of the scientists would say that, data collection is what's going to figure it out. So the more data, the better. The more information you have, the more informed decision you can make. So that's what that project is about. So I've been sometimes not super far afield, but outside of Sydney to basically follow up leads, follow up reports of dead frogs. We go to the area and we conduct a survey and we collect frogs. We swab them using a method that identifies chytrid, but potentially it will pick up the other possibilities that may or may not be involved. So, been a good experience for me, being knee-deep in freezing creeks, picking up frogs and wiping them with Q-tips and collecting data. But, obviously herpers love that stuff. So, and hopefully for a good cause.
Exactly. Definitely for a good cause. It's all about, trying to help out. And if you can kind of enlist the general public to, collect data for you, then that's almost like the ultimate data collecting machine. Yeah.
It's been one of the most successful citizen science projects around. It's been incredibly useful and has been people have looked to this project as how can we use this to do other stuff, basically. So what a cool thing to be involved with, and herpers can do it.
Anyone can really too. That's a good thing about it.
Yeah. And the other thing that happened with Frog ID in particular was after the bushfires.
Yes.
We were trying to get people to record in fire-affected areas. So, once again, if your herping spots or your local area, if you know that it's burnt, it'd be great if you can go down there and try and record frogs and see what's happening there. Really useful information. There is a function on the app where you can make a note. So you can just put a note in there and say this area is still black or this area was burnt 1 year ago, 2 years ago. The project was sort of particularly looking at the 2019-20, the Black Summer bushfires. Really been quite reassuring signs of recovery looking at that.
That's good.
Sounds positive.
Yeah, so we're trying to reach the 1 million frog records milestone, which not that far off.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Is that recordings? 1 million recordings?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you crack it this weekend, eh?
It's quite possible. Quite possible.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
and it's fun. It's easy. You'll learn more about frogs. Like being a Frog ID validator has been really fun and informative for me. Thinking that I knew frog calls pretty well, certainly in my area, and then realizing actually it's quite hard to separate them out when you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe more species calling all at the same time.
Yeah.
You like I said, like I touched on before, I'm the smallest part of that team, but yeah, man, the guys that do it for 6 hours a day, they're like machines. There's one bloke on the team that's retired, and absolute machine. Just pops his headphones on and just goes for it. But that's why I've kind of been putting my hand up for the field work, because I find that personally, I find that easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely suits people. To do frog ID, you can sit at home and just get it done.
With this app as well, have you kind of discovered there's like, new populations of frogs popping up in certain locations and things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really its primary function, is to get an understanding of populations.
Yeah.
Are they growing? Are they decreasing? Hang on a minute, this is a species that's not been heard from here for X amount of time. So yeah, like I was touching on before, is it as part of, it's always part of a bigger picture, using the calls to ID something.
Yeah.
And that's why it has resulted in either some redescriptions or new species. It works alongside the genetics and the geography.
Yeah.
So it's always
translocation. Is that something that's obviously you'd pick up a little bit?
Yeah, it does. It does. There are weird populations of things that aren't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
I probably can't say, but there are some things that are found further south than they should be. Just as an example, that are probably pets.
Yeah.
That have been tadpoles have been sent out into the world, maybe even accidentally. Who knows? But there's some odd ones that turn up. One that people probably know about is there's dainty tree frogs are around Sydney. That's a fairly well-known one.
Yeah.
Just because of the banana box thing, and but they have established enough that people send recordings in. So
that doesn't surprise me at all. I know where there's a massive location of those, and I've seen them in almost like plague proportions, where there must have been hundreds and hundreds of them. Yeah, to the point where it's completely deafening. And I was like, hang on, this shouldn't be here.
They do have an interesting call, eh? It's like a drone. It's a bit of a fun one to listen to with the headphones.
And even when it's in person, it's deafening.
Yeah, same with Chloris. That's another funny one to listen to.
Yeah.
The worst is obviously screaming tree frog, though.
To be honest, I don't think I've heard that. I might have to check it out. That's the other good thing about the app, is you can actually hear the sounds that the frogs make. Yeah, it is very useful. It's a bit like a lot of birdos use hearing. Some use it more than sight, which sounds a bit counterintuitive, but if you know the call, you're sweet. You'll be able to ID stuff much easier. Yeah. Same with frogs. Have any other countries tried to incorporate like a similar app for their frog species at all? Or
that's a good question. I did hear that there was something similar in the US. I think it might have been just a particular university that was doing it. I'm trying to think what I heard it from. What I heard it on. It might have one of the US podcasts. Maybe Colubrid and Colubroid, that one. I think they were talking about, there was one in the southern US that was doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah. It's such a good idea for citizen science, though.
Yeah. It's been so successful. Great for community groups to get involved with, like the badge thing. It's been useful. Recruiting more people. Some things have been sort of realised that perhaps were not known from certain areas. A lot of those phylorias calls have really helped with that. those weird mountain frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never used to be into frogs before I started herping. Hey, I was always very much focused on reptiles, but ever since getting into herping and seeing all these weird little wonderful frog species that were in my area, they just absolutely pulled on the heartstrings, I reckon.
Yeah, I do like frogs.
Yeah, they're such a good thing for. They're like a gateway animal to get into wildlife.
And some people are absolutely petrified of them. Like, because my aunties, they live up at Grafton, and she's got these huge green tree frogs up there. And like,
frog hotspot.
Yeah, my mum and her were just terrified of them. And me being me would, like, try and chase her around with them. But that's probably why I was never allowed reptiles in the house till I was older. But
Yeah. So yeah, guess I'll finish that section by saying, herpers, if you're listening, get out there and make some recordings. Try to go to some cool spots. See if you can challenge yourself. See how many species you can get. See if you can get a chorus. Choruses are always fun for the validators to try and separate out all the species. If you're really good, you can tick all the species you think are calling. See if you get it right. But yeah, and the other thing is, if you don't have reception, you can still take the recording and then just upload it when you have reception. It'll hold the recording.
Oh,
yeah, that's pretty handy.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I was considering that for this weekend. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's very handy. But yeah, obviously we're often out of reception when we're out there. So, yep, no worries about that. I took a couple. Last time I was talking to Jody, she asked me if any frogs were calling in the Kimberley, and I was like, oh, yeah. And she's like, you recorded them, didn't you? And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I did, yes.
With my camera.
Yeah. Yes. No, luckily I did make a few recordings right at the start of the trip, actually. And then I kind of forgot about it, to be honest. But no, to be fair, there was not that much calling. It was actually off the plateau that things were calling. So I did record them. I did my duty. And I actually recorded something that I didn't see because I've sent it in. I forgot about it. And then a month or so later, I was like, oh, shit, I've got to send that recording in because I've got reception, obviously, now. And I got Crinia bilinga. And I was like, damn it. I didn't even look for it.
It's something you always haven't seen, so...
Crinia bilinga, bilingual froglet is the common name. Yeah, didn't even know I knew it was something that I hadn't heard before, but I just figured I'd probably photograph it. So that was a bit of a fail on my part.
I have to go back up there now.
Well,
that was a good gateway into another topic.
Yeah. Sure. No issue going back there, eh? It's it's the best. So well, yeah, that that was the first night. Yeah, that was probably the first night, and it was the only night that I recall hearing frogs calling. So yeah, lucky I didn't get in the bad books with that part of my job.
So who'd you end up heading up to the Kimberley with?
Yeah, what a great trip. It was Josh and Greenie, which many listeners are probably familiar with those two. They've been out and about for quite a few months now.
Living the dream.
Yep, you could say that. we've sort of know each other through the traps.
Yeah.
And just good fortune meant that there was a seat in a vehicle out there. So I was just lucky, able to get the time off at the right time because they had set time that they had to go based on their work schedule. Just worked out. So we were there for not that long, actually. 8 nights.
Yeah.
And not every night was in the middle of the Kimberley. So and it's not. I guess that's one of the big factors about Herping the Kimberley or just visiting is it's very remote and it's not cheap. So getting there, affording the time and getting there are all big factors. For all three of us, it was actually our second visit. So I'd visited the Kimberley in 2018, but that was when I was still living in Alice Springs and I had my own vehicle, and I drove from Alice up north, up the Stewart Highway, and then travelled west along the Gibb River Road and headed up the Mitchell Plateau for a night or two. I was just by myself. I was away for about 2 weeks. But that trip was more, I was just something I liked to do whenever I got the chance. When I was living in the NT was just kind of drive and, look on a map or just look at signs and go, I wonder where this goes. And so I did that through the Kimberley and didn't really target anything super hard, just saw lots of cool stuff, just checked out lots of cool places, and 2 weeks flew by. Got to the western end of the Kimberley to Broome and then drove back through the Tanami. But yeah, it was kind of a shotgun trip. So obviously didn't see quite a few key elements that live in the Kimberley. So when this opportunity came up, it was hard to pass up. Couldn't pass up. And and Josh and Greenie were very much in the same boat, having visited before, and I won't go into it too much because you should get them on to chat, or someone should. And they missed out on a number of things that were, kind of out of their control. So, we were all really stoked to get back up there. It was just it was a way to get there that wasn't going to take me, 3 weeks. Because if you drive from Sydney, that's a big trip, which would be awesome. But I don't have the time to take 3 weeks off because, it'd be close to a week there and a week back.
Definitely.
Before you've done anything. Yeah. So if you have the time.
A week in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When I visited there the first time, I was, on a very short time frame and just didn't have enough time to stay there. I should have probably just driven from Alice straight to the Mitchell Plateau and just stayed there for a week. But, this time it turned out well and we had a solid 4 nights up there and, we didn't leave much behind. We put it all out there for that time. Hard work in trying conditions. It was, it would be closed by now, but super hot. Probably hotter than I was expecting for mid-September, but that was probably wishful thinking.
And it would be pretty humid up there too, wouldn't it? Up that way.
Yeah, it was humid, but but no storms. We didn't get any storms, which was kind of a bummer. Guess that's one of the only things we missed that you would have liked. You would have liked to have that condition, some showers, but you can't plan. Well, we can't. I know some people will plan everything down to the lunar cycle, but sometimes you just got to go when you got the time.
Yeah.
We figured it would be, pretty good.
Did you all have the same target species out there?
I think so.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things that I'd seen, same with the other boys that I'd seen previously, like glebos and kimbos, and they were probably the main things that I had already seen. But the key targets like Felicipoda and obviously Ruffy, Superb Dragon, Kimberley Beardy, Kimberley Death Adder, but you can get them off the plateau. There was sort of those, Pygmy Mulga, again, you can sort of get them off the plateau as well. There was those key species. Felicipoda for me was, right up there, kind of maybe level with Ruffy.
Yeah, okay.
Just because I'd never even seen Felicipoda in a collection or anything.
Yeah.
Never seen it in real life. And they were, just, spectacular to see in real life. So weird looking.
Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. They're probably my favourite of the brothers. So.
And massive as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, super big. It's such a weird looking gecko, hey?
So strange. You look at them and you can see the Oedura in them.
Yep.
But then everything is slightly off. like
compared to the rest, yeah.
Yeah, the proportions are like so big and stretched and kind of exaggerated. And then you've got these crazy digits with the fringed bits of flesh coming off them. It's bizarre.
Did you find any western giant cave geckos out there? Or?
Yeah, we did.
Cavaticus.
Yeah, they were awesome too.
Yeah, I'd love to see them.
Josh spotted the first one. We had been looking and we were having no luck.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of hard when you've got, we had, 5 to 10 kind of must-see things, and it's obviously difficult when you're out and you find something, you want to take photos of that, and then you're like, oh man, I can't spend too much time on this because I'm wasting time that I could be looking for something else. But because it's such an amazing place, doesn't happen for everything. You definitely have to work for it still, but sometimes you do, especially when you've got a couple of people, you do kind of bounce around and go, well, got something here. And so we're able to kind of acquire targets fairly quickly, certainly quicker than if you were by yourself.
Yeah.
With seasoned pairs of eyes and everyone very motivated. So, the cave geckos were funny. Like we kept seeing Gahyra xenopus, crocodile-faced Gahyra, and they're quite big and they love caves. So
mistaken them.
You'd eye shine them from quite a distance, and you'd be like, "That's a big gecko," and get up there, and superficially they look similar-ish. They're sort of the cave geckos are banded, whereas the Gahyras are spotted, but from a distance you can see something is going on there with pattern, and get closer and closer, like, nah. It's another go higher, but yeah, Josh ended up spotting the first cave gecko we found in a tree. I think it was on a vine or something like that. Yeah, which is just classic.
Yeah, not what you think it'd be.
Yeah, not that they can't be in trees. Like certainly they are.
Yeah. But you know, you think cave gecko that you'd be looking for them in the caves. So.
Yeah. And then I think it was maybe the next night we found the same gecko because we recognized the pattern on the tail. Found the same gecko this time, just like up in some rocks. And then either that night or the next, I found another one, a different one in a cave, doing cave gecko things. with a not with a regen tail. So
that's good.
That was nice.
That's the thing with geckos. Like you find your snakes on that, you know, and they're full bodied, but you find a gecko and you want to try and get it without a regen tail.
Yeah.
The photos I sort of the main photos I got of the cave gecko was a regen tail one, but you don't really notice it that much with that one. And the other one, I'm a sucker for just leaving things and taking in situ photos and just kind of enjoying what's happening. Sometimes I don't like to ruin it for myself. I don't always do that. Don't get me wrong, but the second cave gecko, so cool. Just watching it cruise around in a cave.
Yeah, they're pretty fast, aren't
they? Yeah. Oh man.
And agile.
This one running. The first one, it was running along the escarpment, and it's like looked like a camel because it's like its feet were too big for its body, and it was like cartoon sort of going like this,
going up and around,
but with all four legs, and the pads were sort of sticking, and it's like, it's so weird. I was looking at it going, what the hell is that? And it's just like stuck.
They almost look like flippers or something, don't they, when they're running?
Yeah.
It looks like they're trying to lift up their feet heaps.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. It's like like a person walking around on land with flippers heading over to the water. They look completely out of it.
Yeah. And so some animals just look like really awkward doing things like that. Like I think I've often mentioned just like how gillons look absolutely useless on the ground, but you put them in a tree and they're a weapon.
Yeah, that's true. It was quite a gecko heavy trip, really.
Sounds like my type of trip.
Yeah. Forget North Queensland. You got to go to the Mitchell Plateau.
Yeah, that's one place I'd love to go. That would be after North Queensland. That'd be my next place that I want to go to. So.
Yeah, I mean it's not the easiest place to get to, so
no,
it's fair enough.
I've got some family that live up there.
Oh yeah,
so
take advantage of that. Just ask to borrow their car.
Yeah. So stop in.
Can I take it along the Gibb River Road?
Probably get told no.
up the Mitchell Plateau.
Yeah. But, it's one place I definitely want to go
to. Unless you're prepared to write the car off and buy them a new car, it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough road.
Actually, in saying that, both me and the other guys, our first visits, the road, and other people I've spoken to that have been up there, the road is among the worst in Australia. Just soul-destroying driving along there for hours and hours.
It's pretty notorious, that road.
Yeah, notorious for writing cars off and being soul-destroying.
Yeah.
But, I think the other guys would agree. To be honest, it was actually pretty good. It must have been recently graded. It was a smooth ride, really.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Certainly wouldn't let that put you off. But you never know.
You definitely want a capable vehicle to take on that road.
You definitely do. And the boys there, their troopies, extremely capable, and didn't miss a beat, not surprisingly.
Yeah.
But can be a difficult journey up there. That's true. I would actually say we probably saw a greater diversity of geckos than anything else.
That's cool. What sort of temperatures and stuff were you experiencing during the night times when you were
out? Night times weren't crazy hot. Obviously, a bit of heat hangs around because on the plateau it's just rock everywhere. I guess a little bit like Sydney sandstone, but not as heavily forested. Kind of off the plateau, like you got creek lines, obviously, that have got pandanus in them and stuff like that. And then around the waterfalls and stuff like that, you've got this sort of monsoon forest, vine thicket, wet stuff with some bigger trees in there. But then the rest is savanna. And so quite dry, not massive trees, fairly sparse.
Yeah.
Whereas Sydney sandstone, obviously, you got a bit more diversity. You got bits of rainforest, bits of wet sclerophyll with huge trees, more cover, and in general not as hot, obviously. So, the sun would definitely bake the rock, and it would hang around for a couple of hours. But overall, nighttime temps weren't crazy. Still like low 20s.
Okay.
But the days were getting very hot. And because you don't want to waste a minute, you're trudging up and down the escarpment from camp out to wherever we're trying to look again and or scope out, another corner that we haven't looked in. Because obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I don't know if we've really talked about it, but finding the finding the rough scale python was not easy.
Yeah.
I know certainly it can be easy that you can just kind of come across them, but no, that wasn't easy. And I was like pretty exhausted by 4 nights of searching and cruising around all day, and for some stuff it didn't help us. Like I wanted to get really good looks at Kimberley rock monitors, and we were just getting up. I mean, this is just my guess. I think we were just getting up too late.
Yeah.
And not super late, but late enough that we'd get out there and they were just like pinging off. Yeah.
Yeah.
We weren't really catching them basking. They were just superheated by that stage. You can still get them out in high temperatures, and it just wasn't happening for us. You probably got better chances when it's not quite as hot. Weirdly, or maybe it's not weird, but just the way it worked out, we had one morning where we saw like 4 Gleba Palmer.
Wow.
Wow.
We were just spotting them. We'd sort of got our eye in for them because we were all just spotting like one after the other. We'd just be walking along, go, oh, there's one up on that rock, like from quite far distances, and there's another one up there. But we weren't really getting the same thing with Kimberley rock monitors for whatever reason. The Glebos were all just staying out whenever we saw them. Maybe they were relying on camouflage. maybe just different behaviours. Yeah, they're certainly a cryptic sort of piranid by the looks. Kimberley rock monitors were just scooting under rocks, like super quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Were the glebos that you were saying, were they some pretty decent-sized glebos, or were they kind of smaller individuals? Or I'm just thinking if they were a bit bigger, maybe if they were a bit more brazen.
I would say one was an adult. I think the picture I shared of one, the one I shared a picture of, would have been an adult. I think the rest were sub-adults. Apart from, I think Mark found one juvie in a crevice. But, yeah, not adults.
Yeah,
certainly not.
Okay.
But then the time that I saw one years before that in the same area, it was actually literally on dusk, so twilight. The sun was sort of had dropped below the horizon, but was still lighting the earth, if you like.
Yeah.
So you could still walk around without a torch, and I nearly walked straight past one. It was just walking around on escarpment, like completely out in the open. Stopped, was looking at me, and I was like, "What the hell?" I'd never seen one before that, and it was the size of a Mertens. So
wow,
is that a Mertens or what is that? And because it was kind of dark, it didn't click straight away what it was. Obviously, thinking back, it would have been quite weird behavior for a Mertens, but I guess the other difference at that time, there was heaps more water, because the time I went previously was right after the wet season, like May.
Yeah, okay.
So heaps more water than what there was this time around. So Mertens would have been up there in that spot. Yeah, but yeah, it's like like some of the places in Central Australia, just like a wonderland.
Yeah. Do you know if it had like a little bit of rain before you'd gotten up there this time around?
There was plenty of water around, but it was quickly disappearing.
Yeah.
I could tell because I had photos from the 4 years prior. I could look at the same like water holes and waterfalls that weren't waterfalls this time.
Yeah.
Because I had slow exposure photos of water cascading down waterfalls, and this time around that they were nearly dry, or just sort of drying pools where last time you could have jumped in there and had a shower.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
that was one. We saw for snakes, we saw quite a few greater black whip snakes, which we weren't really expecting. Not really something we were thinking of for a Mitchell Plateau Kimberley trip, but we ended up seeing, I think, 3 greater black whip snakes, and one was in one of those drying pools, and we ended up moving it because we'd seen it a couple of times, and it appeared as though it had actually tired itself out enough that it was probably not able to get out of there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but that was cool to see. They're a cool species to see up close. They're quite big, hence the name.
Yeah, I think we got one of those in the NT, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
good looking animal.
Yes. Yeah, very cool. Cool, big, whip-like. Yeah.
Super quick.
I reckon the most numerous snake we saw would have been children's pythons, which more than once when you like looking
shining the rocks and
where you think a roughie's perfect spot for a roughie to be sitting, like there's a snake there. Another children's.
Antaresia seem to have bane of people's existence when they're looking for rare pythons, don't they?
Pretty funny. I nearly stepped on two, and we were like, just bush bashing and looking anywhere you could think of, and you'd go, "Oh shit!" Nearly stepped on another children's python.
Poor children's pythons, they get so unloved.
I took plenty of photos of them. They're still cool. I took photos of them in ambush and stuff like that. It's still awesome. It's just
cool.
It's just you want to see what you don't normally see. It's
yeah.
That's how it is. That's human nature. We got psyched a couple of times by olives, like medium-sized olives. Looks like it's possibly going to be a roughy-sized snake just based on size. Get a bit closer. Another olive python. Saw quite a few of them. They're most, I think all except one. We probably saw half a dozen. I think all except one were quite orangey red in colour.
Oh, nice.
Really, really nice olives there. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, good-looking snakes.
I like how Jason's trying to be quiet with his frog.
It's going mental.
But it's Frog ID week. Let him go.
I know. Yeah.
Make a recording.
Yeah. That does happen sometimes.
I thought it would.
You can imagine if someone has in their shed or something some white-lipped tree frogs or something quite noisy, someone might record that.
Yeah, for the next door neighbour or something.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, though, that those olives have a bit of an orangey red hue to them.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of variance in olives generally.
Let me see if I can... That's one of the non-orangey ones. Yeah, they were just like really clean, and except one of them was pretty battle scarred.
Was it a larger individual, or was it?
Yeah.
Small? Yeah.
I'll see if I can find some photos. I've just been so slack trying to get photos up there. My computer is just has way too many files on it.
That sounds like my phone. Need to delete pictures to take more pictures.
Yeah.
The choice of having kids.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I enjoyed seeing all the olives.
Oh, we can.
They're a cool snake.
I was stoked to finally tick those off the list in the NT. Well, got to see some babies as well as some adults as well, which was good.
Yeah. We saw them doing all sorts of different things. They were, got a few like in ambush, chasing monjons, the little macropods that live up on the Mitchell Plateau.
Yeah.
That happened a few times where we thought we may have disturbed or come across them in the middle of trying to track one down.
That would have been cool. Imagine actually seeing that actually happen in real time too. A good catch.
Yeah, there was definitely one that I came across, and I thought I could. I saw I heard the monjon before I saw the olive, and I was like, "Oh, there's a monjon," and then looked, and there was this like quite big olive python right near it, just heading straight for it. But the monjons must. Yeah, the olives just must use pure stealth, get within range and launch
That's crazy. Did it look like it was like sitting on a game trail or anything like that, or is it just like where it was pretty open?
This one was off like a, you know, obviously the trails there are not super well marked, but it was sort of off a trail in amongst spinifex. We saw olives in lots of the time in escarpment spinifex sort of country, but we also saw them in the woodland stuff. I'll see if it'll let me chuck that in the... Can you go in there? Can you throw photos in the comments?
Don't think so.
I'm not sure. We haven't really played around with this too much on that sort of things.
I'll send it here.
Yeah, there you go. Kimberley's definitely one of those places that I'd absolutely love to get.
Oh yeah, like I said, it's like a wonderland. You could just keep going back there. You're probably going to see something different every time.
Oh, that's a cool shot.
I think that might have been the first olive we saw, and then we ended up probably seeing another half a dozen.
Well, that's cool. That was just kind of like sitting on the rock, just essentially waiting with his head kind of coming out of that dried spinning.
Yeah.
All grasses and that. That's cool.
Cool dudes. We found another one that was just completely disguised in leaf litter with just its head poking out.
Oh, man.
That's cool.
See, that's a behaviour that I wouldn't associate with them naturally.
Yeah, that's right.
Being in the leaf litter?
Well, just like being covered by it like that, like it is in full ambush, you know?
Yeah, it's not clear whether it was in ambush or if it was just had been hiding in there and was coming out. I'll send it. It was a juvie. That's probably part of it, hiding in there because it's still small enough that it gets snaffled by a bigger python.
Yeah.
But yeah, bulk olives and children's up there. Absolutely no shortage of them. We were all pretty stoked to get that Western pygmy mulga.
I bet.
That was a really spectacular little snake.
They are a cool little mulga.
Yeah, so just so sort of boldly patterned and everything.
Yeah.
That olive looks like it's completely disappeared underneath that leaf.
It does, hey. I don't know how you spotted it.
Yeah, it's just its head poking out. It was a metre or so off the trail.
That's unreal.
Pretty funny, eh? Yeah, we'd seen numerous olives by that stage, and I was still taking photos of them. I think that's the beauty of taking in situ photos and videos is you can it's different every time. It's a new it's a new experience that you can record with a little. There's always some sort of story attached to it. I kind of like getting a record shot, a field guide shot. And then kind of after that, it's all about in situ. It's just so satisfying.
Yeah.
Seeing things do what they would be doing without you there.
Yeah. It's definitely like a next level type thing. I feel like it's kind of like you almost grow a little bit as a herper and go, actually, I really just enjoy seeing this way, actually watching it, like for a long time I've been very much, like to get hands on or something if I can. And now I'm kind of stepping away from that going, I'm happy just sitting back watching this.
Mm. Yeah, and I get that. It's I still, some things it doesn't work with, and some things it does. I guess purely for my own enjoyment, I like to, because it's field craft, really, being able to get close to something without spooking it. And sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay. It just doesn't work sometimes. Or sometimes it's impossible, or it's not safe. Whatever, all sorts of reasons. But I think if you look for in situ, you'll find it somehow. Maybe not this time, maybe not the next time. Eventually you'll find it, and you'll get something, if that's what you're into.
Yeah.
And and there'll never be another shot, another sort of thing quite like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that one-off. It's not that pose stage kind of shot.
But, don't get me wrong. I love field guide shots, and I still take them. I just like both.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, what other critters did you come by up that way?
We actually, even though I'm a little bit of a birdo, we didn't do much with birds, actually. It was just purely just not getting up early and just getting so hot so quick. We didn't do a whole lot with birds. Mark and I got glimpses of black grass wren, which is an endemic species up on the Mitchell Plateau. So that was cool, but I think Mark got an award-winning shot of that. Not really. It's just a black blur with some grass in front of it. But we saw some cool mammals though. The monjons were cool, and we got one of the possums. There's scaly-tailed possum and rock ringtail, I think. Two sort of possum species up there, and we just sort of saw one. Well, I think it was only, not sure if the other guys were behind me, but just saw one like back in a cave and sort of got eyes on it, and it turned around and just walked off into this cave that just went back 20 meters or more, but not big enough for a person to follow.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could see the sort of scaly tail, so I think that might have been it. Didn't end up really being able to ID it. Some cool geckos, the cavies, the Lysipoda gracilis, the gracile or graceful velvet gecko. They were super cool. Yeah. Juvenile Lysipoda. It's always cool to find juvenile oeduras.
Oh, yeah.
So they're so different. I just can't believe how big their tails are.
Yeah, I want to see a different couple of Jamata now, because I kind of got a Jamata that's like the in-between transition stage where it wasn't quite juvenile, it wasn't quite adult.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Oh, that's it, man. Like, you just want to, the more you go out, the more you want to see. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Now I'm still with local herping. I'm still obsessing over trying to find eastern browns in the mountains, and it's quite difficult. They're thick on the ground in Western Sydney. I got another one yesterday. But in the mountains, I can't find one for love or money.
Yeah, right.
But that's why, does it matter? how many eastern browns do you need to see?
It's just that want to find one somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does matter. It matters to me.
Well, that's all that matters, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like I threw out a while back, does it count as a tick if you find something on a job, like a snake call out, or on a, like on the mining jobs or whatever? And everyone was saying, no, it doesn't, no, it doesn't. And somebody, oh, yes, it does if you spot it, and blah, blah. And, it was just kind of a G-up, because you can do whatever the hell you want. You can make up your own rules.
Exactly.
As long as it counts for you.
I personally don't count it, but if you want to count it, that's fine. I get snakes at work a lot, red bellies and browns, and you can really tell when the season changes, because you get red bellies all year, but you only get browns when it's warm enough.
Yeah.
So the browns have only been moving the last few weeks at work. Found a couple, unfortunately, been car struck nearby, and have moved a couple from inside the zoo. But one, I got, usually someone calls and says, oh, there's a snake in the dingo yard or whatever, can you come and get it? Which is fine, or a visitor sees one or whatever. But this time I was just doing something completely unrelated, and just out of the corner of my eye saw something near one of the dams. Like, oh, it's a huge brown snake. Sweet. So I count that.
That one counts, yeah.
It was herped at work.
Wasn't purposely behind glass, so you're all right.
That's it.
No, and someone didn't tell me where it was. That's why snake call-outs don't count. But they count if you want them to count.
Exactly.
Make up your own rules.
That's it.
Yeah, what else? So local herping. Yeah, it's been a bit. I don't know how everyone else is finding it, but it's been pretty cool down here.
Yeah.
Daytime.
I did see a few people post some stuff when I got a bit warmer, but it's kind of slowed down a bit recently.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there was those couple of warmish nights a couple of weeks ago. It's obviously it's a few degrees cooler in the mountains. Like the coast tends to hold the temps a bit better.
Yeah.
Not to say that there's things not moving up here. They definitely are in the day, but at night they might be, and I'm just missing them. But it's been very quiet up here. I was saying to Mark today, actually, or yesterday, when I'm looking at the weather, and between say 7 p.m. when it's starting to get dark and 9 p.m. if it says 20 degrees, I'm like, ooh, maybe I should go out. It's it's really warming up.
Yeah.
Which is it's a bit sad, but it's warm enough for things to be out. There's no doubt about it. It's just your chances certainly go down.
Yeah. Oh, we've had a few good days, and what was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Yesterday got to 29 where I was.
Yeah, you've had some adder during the daytime adder. That's that's always good.
Yeah, got very lucky with that one. I keep checking the spot where I found it too, because the other fella there, he saw a bigger one there as well. So I reckon it might hopefully be in that sort of region that they hang around a fair bit. So
yeah,
just keep poking my head back there every first smoko I go to.
It's not a bad strategy. It's also with animals what you call superstitious behavior. Something happens in a spot and you remember it and you check it. It's a survival mechanism. Had a near miss with a predator here. I'm going to avoid that or watch that area all the time now.
Yeah, true.
But it's a good strategy for us. It's obviously a lot of the time there could be a shelter site, a refuge site nearby. So
yeah.
Especially some things like browns appeared, certainly based on some papers, like some of Rick Shine's papers and people's observations. They're very burrow sort of based critter. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of hoping I can figure out where a shelter site is and try and do some observations that way. They're one of those species that's a bit overlooked because they are quite common in suburbia. But most people's interactions with them are having them removed from their property.
Yeah, negative.
Yeah. But they're a seriously cool snake, highly variable and big too.
Yeah. Hey, we don't really get too many of them over this way, to be honest.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be thickest in Western Sydney, in the sort of flat country, in the grassy country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same in the mountains. They're definitely around, and they're in some of the really sandy heath country. That's where a lot of records and sort of observations and anecdotes are from. But yeah, it's quite different habitat. Perhaps it just doesn't support the same numbers that it does down on the plains.
Yeah. Oh, you'll get it one day.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of putting in the hours.
Yeah, you need these things to work on. So what are you looking for up next week or this weekend? Crucifix frog
and everything. Yeah, crucifix frog. I'd like to tick off William's Eye. I'd like to get a better look at a sand monitor. Just because I saw a bunch in the NT, but as soon as you see them, they take off. So that's not much fun. Yeah, basically anything and everything, to be honest. I know that there's probably, I think it's like 30 odd species or something in the sort of vicinity that we're going to of random bits and pieces. So just try to tick off as many as you can.
Yeah, you shouldn't have too much trouble with that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's how it is. You got to have your targets and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just keen to get out. That's my mainest thing.
Yeah. It's tough.
But yeah. William's Eye is definitely one of my best ones to target. I'd like to see quite a few of those if possible, if I can be greedy. I never get super strophs.
Yeah. We actually we did get McMillan Eye in the Kimberley. That was good.
Oh, cool.
They're like a bit of a, I guess they're kind of a phasmid-y looking sort of gecko.
Yeah.
One of those striped spinifex dwellers. And some of the cool Ciliaris as well.
Oh, nice. They're aberrants up there, aren't they?
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be wicked. Alrighty. Well, yeah, I mean, thanks so much for coming on again, Cam.
No worries, man.
It's unreal.
Fellas.
We might wrap it up
Makes me
here.
want to go herping now. Might get the frog out of the weekend, eh?
Yeah.
Go hit up some local ponds.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's the final message for the herpers. Get out there and herp, do your thing, and just chuck some recordings when you're out there. Doesn't matter if it's crinia, whatever. Can be anything.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited too. I'm excited to do that in a new place. So hopefully I'll be able to contribute this weekend. Righty, mate. Well, thanks so much for coming on and having a chat to us.
Thank you for having me and talking about Frog ID and, Frog ID Week. Very good of you to organise that on very short notice.
Oh, more than welcome, mate.
No, all good, mate.
And for anybody that hasn't, make sure you go and follow Cam over at Cam Candy Wildlife on Instagram as well, because he's popping up heaps of awesome photos from his Kimberley trip and stuff up there, as well as all sorts of other wildlife pics. So definitely worth a follow there. Alrighty, guys, we'd like to say a massive thank you to Eric and Owen and the rest of the MPI crew for having us. If you'd like to contact them, it's best to find them at moreliapythonradio.com and email them at info@moreliapythonradio.com. Make sure to follow the MPI network on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. As far as contacting us on our social media platforms, you can email us at australianherpetoculture@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Make sure to check out our Teespring store for podcast merch. We've got the link on the Facebook page. To see more of what Jason is doing, make sure to follow him on Facebook and Instagram at The Gecko Effect. And for myself, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, at Patreon, and Teespring under Beach of Scaly Beasts. We hope to have you back next week for another episode of the Australian Herpetoculture Podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.